Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really jumping into something interesting, the BNB chain. Our mission basically is to unpack its whole journey, from when it was Binance Smart Chain right up to its pretty central role now in Web3. We're going to pull out the key stuff from our sources, give you a clear, concise, and hopefully a really informative picture of why this network is, frankly, such a big deal.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic. I mean, blockchain tech has just exploded, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And BNB Chain has really carved out its own space. What makes it so compelling, I think, are these rapid strategic changes and some key innovations that genuinely make it stand out. Lots to talk about.
Okay, let's unpack that journey then. The story actually kicks off a bit earlier than some might think, 2017, with the BNB token itself. It was originally, believe it or not, an ERC20 token living on Ethereum. Then 2019 made a big move, migrated over to the new Binance chain.
That's right. And that first Binance chain, well, it was built for speed, yeah, mainly for quick token swaps.
Yeah.
But, and this is the key thing, it had very limited programmability. So that created a bit of a problem for Binance. How do you get high speed and the smart contract flexibility needed for, dApps and DeFi? This challenge, it directly led to launching Binance Smart Chain, BSC, back in September 2020. BSC was specifically designed for smart contracts, and crucially, it ran alongside the original Binance chain.
Ah, so running in parallel.
Exactly. And it's a big draw for developers. It was EVM compatible, Ethereum virtual machine compatible. That meant it could pretty much run Ethereum applications right out of the box. It was quite a clever move. Gave them the best of both.
Right, okay. And this dual chain thing, it eventually led to a pretty major rebrand, didn't it? February 2022. That's when Binance Chain and Binance Smart Chain sort of officially merged into just the BNB chain. So what was the thinking there? Why bring them together under this new name?
Well, the motivation was really about decentralization, or at least the perception of it. Binance CEO CZ Changpeng Zhao, he put it quite clearly. He said, people always think of BSC as part of Binance because it carries the company's name. We've done a lot of work to decentralize it and hope to make BNB go beyond Binance.
Yeah.
So it was a signal. This wasn't just changing the name. It was pushing towards a more community-driven idea. BNB now stands for Build and Build.
Build and build.
Yeah, reflecting this philosophy of build the community and let the community build and build. Empowering the ecosystem, basically. Moving beyond just Binance itself.
That's a pretty strong statement of intent. How did that philosophy then shape the actual, the nuts and bolts, the architecture?
Well, initially, under that BNB Chain banner, you still had that dual chain structure, sort of. You had the BNB Beacon Chain. That was mainly the governance layer, staking, voting, use the BP2 token standard. And then you had the BNB Smart Chain, BSC. That's the main EVM layer. That's where all the action is, really. dApps, DeFi, Web3 stuff. Mostly using the BEP20 standard, which is very similar to Ethereum's ERC20.
Okay, but the architecture didn't just stop there, right? It's kept evolving. What else has been added to the mix?
Absolutely, it's grown. To tackle things like scaling and add new functions, they brought in newer components. We've now got OPBNB, that's a layer 2 scaling solution. It's built using the Optimism OP stack. Its main job is just boosting transaction speed way up and cutting fees right down. So it's great for things like games or social apps that need lots of transactions.
Right, high throughput stuff.
Exactly. And then there's BNB Greenfield. That's quite different. It's a decentralized storage infrastructure. Think of it like decentralized AWS S3 or Google Cloud Storage. But the key difference is data ownership. Greenfield aims to let you truly control and maybe even monetize your data without relying on one big company. That's a big deal for Web3.
Huh, decentralized storage, that's interesting. And I remember reading about something called BNB Chain Fusion. What's that about?
Yes, the BNB Chain Fusion. That's a really strategic move. Announced late 2023, set to wrap up around mid-2024. The plan is basically to sunset the original BNB Beacon Chain, the governance one, and move all its functions, staking, voting, everything, onto the BNB Smart Chain.
Okay, so consolidating onto BSC, why do that?
It's mainly about streamlining the network. Makes it simpler, more efficient, easier for developers to, only one chain to focus on. And it also likely reduces some security complexities that come with running two chains in parallel. It's about making the architecture cleaner and ready for future growth.
Got it. So through all these changes, the BNB token itself seems absolutely central, doesn't it? It's the native coin fueling this whole expanding thing. But maybe for listeners, could you break down the main ways they'd actually use BNB? What's its utility?
Yeah, its utility is really quite broad now, which is valuable for users, So obviously you use it to pay gas fees on the BNB chain, that's standard. But it's also the governance token. You need to hold and stake BNB to actually participate in the on-chain governance to have a say in where the chain is going.
Okay, so governance is a big one. What else?
Well, there are practical perks too. Like on the Binance exchange, you get a 25% discount on your trading fees if you pay them with BNB. That adds up. But beyond that, its real-world uses are surprisingly diverse. You can use it for actual payments through integrations like PundiX or CoinGate. You can book travel on sites like TravelBBit and Travel.com. Even entertainment, buying virtual land in Axie Infinity, using it on platforms like BNBE.
Wow, okay. Travel and virtual land.
Yeah. And other services too, like hiring freelancers, paying for cloud subscriptions, plus financial stuff like getting loans or even trading stocks in some cases. And fundamentally, it's crucial for Metifi. That's Binance's big vision, blending metaverse, DeFi, GameFi, SocialFi, Web3, NFTs, all into one connected ecosystem.
Metifi, like making all these different Web3 things work together seamlessly.
Exactly. Imagine your game items becoming collateral for a loan or your social profile connecting to your DeFi investments. BNB is positioned as the core token, enabling that kind of interoperability in their vision.
Okay, that paints a clear picture of the token's role. Let's switch gears a bit to performance, speed, and cost. BNB Chain definitely built our reputation for being faster and cheaper, especially compared to Ethereum back in the day. BSC block times were typically around 3 seconds, right? While Ethereum could be anywhere from, what, 2 to 14 seconds?
That's right, and they haven't stood still on that front. There was a really significant upgrade called Maxwell, went live June 29th, 2025. Maxwell basically halved the block time down to just 0.75 seconds. That's incredibly fast.
Wow, 0.75 seconds, so under a second.
Yeah. It really positions BNB Chain among the fastest major blockchains out there, and the market noticed too. The BNB token price jumped about 6.5% in the week after Maxwell, which suggests investors saw it as a pretty big deal.
And OPBNB, the layer 2, helps with scalability too, doesn't it? What kind of numbers are we talking about there?
Oh, absolutely. OPBNB adds another layer of performance. It can hit around 4,600 transactions per second, TPS. And just to give you an idea of volume, in 2024, it was processing something like 7.1 million transactions every day on average. That's serious throughput.
Okay, impressive numbers. But this often comes with trade-offs, right? Particularly around decentralization. How does BNB Chain handle that?
That's a really important point. And yes, there's a definite trade-off here worth considering. BSC uses a consensus mechanism with 21 active validators. These are essentially the top 21 entities staking BNB. They get re-elected every day, and you need to stake at least 10,000 BNB to even be in the running.
Only 21 validators. How does that compare to, say, Ethereum?
It's a stark contrast. Ethereum, especially now with proof of stake, has thousands of validators, or stakers. You need 32 ETH to become one. So you have a much, much larger and more distributed set of participants securing the network on Ethereum.
So what's the implication of having fewer validators? Faster speeds, lower costs, but potentially less decentralized.
That's the core trade-off. Fewer validators mean reaching consensus is quicker and cheaper. That's how BNB Chain gets its speed and low fees. But theoretically, concentrating power among a smaller group could make the network, potentially more vulnerable to certain kinds of coordination or censorship compared to a network with thousands of independent validators. BNB Chain tries to mitigate this with things like daily validator elections and security measures, but it's a fundamental architectural difference you need to weigh up.
Right. It's a different philosophy on balancing the blockchain trilemma: speed, security, decentralization. Okay. Now, let's talk about what's actually built on BNB Chain. They call it the strongest ecosystem backed by a massive user base. Are the numbers there?
The numbers are pretty impressive, yeah. By the end of 2024, BSC alone hit about 1.12 million daily active users. Daily. And the total number of unique wallet addresses was over 486 million. That definitely points to widespread adoption.
Okay, so lots of users. What are they actually doing? What kind of applications are thriving?
Well, it's definitely a major DeFi hub, huge range of decentralized exchanges, lending platforms, yield farms. PancakeSwap is the big one, their most popular dApp. We're talking 4 million monthly users, often doing over $500 million in daily volume.
$500 million daily on PancakeSwap alone. Wow.
Yeah, it's significant. And beyond DeFi, its speed and low fees make it really attractive for gaming, GameFi, and NFTs. You've got popular games like Seraph in the Darkness, World of Dipians, each claiming over 1 million users, plus others like CryptoBlades, Mobox. Quite a vibrant gaming scene, and something they're really pushing now is AI integration.
AI on the blockchain, how does that work?
Well, they're positioning themselves as an AI-first chain. Over 60 AI-related projects have apparently deployed already. These range from things like AI agent platforms, OpenPad AI is one example, to AI-powered games, and even decentralized social networks using AI. Plus, essential infrastructure players like Chainlink, the Oracle Network, and 1inch, the DEX aggregator, are deeply integrated. They need BNB Chain's performance.
That ecosystem sounds incredibly dynamic, so much activity, which naturally brings us to security.
Yeah.
How do they manage security with all that's going on?
Yeah, that's always the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Blockchain itself has inherent security, cryptography, decentralization. But we all know vulnerabilities exist. Things like 51% attacks, Sybil attacks, and especially rug pulls in the DeFi space are real threats across the industry. So the question is, what is BNB Chain specifically doing to tackle these risks?
Right. Are there concrete initiatives?
Yes, they've been quite proactive. One key thing is DAppBay. It's basically a curated list or portal for dApps, but it includes a red alarm system. Apparently, in less than a year, it helped users flag over 445 risky dApps and projects. There was one specific case, Yield Robot. Their internal team flagged it as high risk before it rug pulled, potentially saving users something like $2.1 million.
That's tangible impact. What else?
Then there's AvengerDAO. This is interesting because it's community run. It actually powers the risk scanner tool within DAppBay. They've scanned over 1 million smart contracts, flagged around 35,000 as high risk, and alerted users. It's like a neighborhood watch, but for smart contracts.
Community-driven security, that's neat. Has it actually made a difference in terms of losses?
The data suggests it has. Financial losses from hacks and scams on BNB Chain reportedly dropped by 67% in 2024 compared to 2023. Went down from about $162 million to $53 million. And the actual number of incidents dropped by 66% too. It shows a shift, I think, from just reacting to incidents to proactively trying to prevent them, using both internal teams and community efforts like AvengerDAO.
Those are significant drops. And just to give that some more context, I saw a stat that in the first half of 2023, only about 9% of active projects were hit by security issues. And the amount of value the TVL affected was less than 2% of the total locked on the chain, which sounds pretty resilient for such a huge ecosystem.
Exactly. And if you compare it to others, like in Q1 2023, BNB Chain saw only about 0.56% of its TVL impacted by exploits. That was much lower than, say, Polygon at that time, which was around 9.55%. So relative to some competitors, its security posture looks quite strong. Plus, they have Hacken, a well-respected security auditor, as an official partner, which adds another layer of external scrutiny.
Okay, so security is clearly a focus. This ties back to that idea of being community-driven and decentralized. How does the community actually steer the ship? How does governance work in practice?
Right, good question. They have a pretty formal, structured process for on-chain governance involving BNB token holders. It usually starts informally, with a temperature check proposal on a platform called Snapshot, just to see if there's general interest in an idea. If it gets traction, then a formal proposal could be submitted on another platform, Tally. You need a certain amount of staked BNB voting power, like over 200 BNB, to do that.
Okay, so informal check, then formal proposal, then what?
Then the voting starts. It's open for 7 days. BNB holders who've staked their tokens get voting power, and they can vote for, against, or abstain. To pass, a proposal needs two things. First, enough participation, a 10% quorum of the total voting power. And second, more than 50% of the votes cast must be for. If it passes, there's a 1-day time lock period, kind of a final review or audit window before it's actually implemented on the chain.
Seems quite thorough. What are the upsides of doing it this way?
Well, the direct benefits are boosting decentralization, giving the community real say. It helps align development with what users actually need or want. It increases transparency because the whole process is on-chain. And it can spur innovation by letting good ideas bubble up from the community itself. It's governance in action.
Can you give an example of something the community changed through this process?
Yeah, a really relevant one recently was action taken against malicious MEV, maximal extractable value. Specifically, they tackled sandwich attacks through a governance proposal.
Sandwich attacks. That's where bots jump in front of and behind your trade to profit from the price movement you cause, right?
Exactly. Super annoying for users. The community proposed and approved changes to mitigate this behavior. So that's a direct example of governance, improving user experience, and making the network fairer, driven by the token holders.
That's powerful. And while maybe there were centralization concerns historically, especially being linked to Binance, it sounds like this governance model and other efforts are actively working to distribute control more over time.
That seems to be the direction, yeah. Plus, things like staking rewards incentivize more people to participate, which further helps decentralization. It's an ongoing process.
Okay, so looking forward then, what's on the horizon? What's the BNB Chain Tech roadmap for 2025 look like?
It's pretty ambitious. They're
Yeah.
focusing hard on pushing the boundaries even further on speed, user experience, definitely AI, and also making life easier for developers.
All right, break it down for us. What are the highlights for 2025?
Okay, so low latency is a big one. Building on things they did in 2024, like parallel EVM, the goal is sub-second transaction latency, and they're aiming to process 100 million transactions a day.
100 million a day. Wow. What else?
Gasless transactions. This could be huge for usability. They had an initiative called MegaFuel that already handled millions of gasless stablecoin transfers. The plan is to expand this so potentially all user transactions can be gasless, or at least let users pay fees in stablecoins or other tokens, not just BNB. That removes a big friction point for new users.
Yeah, gas fees are definitely confusing for newcomers.
Totally. They're also doubling down on eliminating malicious MEV, like those sandwich attacks we mentioned, improving how blocks are handled, reducing mempool exposure. Many wallets are already integrating protection too. And smart wallet innovations. Think simpler key management, maybe like EIP 7702 and batch transactions. So you can do multiple things in one click, no more separate approved and swap steps. Plus, maybe full gas sponsorship by dApps.
Making it feel more like a regular app experience, basically.
Exactly. And then there's the AI-first strategy. That synergy between AI and Web3 is a major focus. With over 60 AI projects already there, they want to use BSC and BNB Greenfield to accelerate things like data ownership, maybe through data DAOs, where communities manage and monetize shared data, and also autonomous AI agents, using secure tech like trusted execution environments, TEs, for privacy and reliability.
Really leaning into that AI future, anything for the developers.
Yes, refining developer tools, making SDKs and APIs easier to use, and introducing an AI-powered coding assistant like a BNB Chain AI Code Copilot
Yeah.
to speed up development. Oh, and they specifically mentioned continued support for the meme coin ecosystem too, which, like it or not, drives a lot of activity.
Can't ignore the memes. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, it really has been quite a transformation for BNB Chain. From its beginnings as BSC, it's become this really comprehensive ecosystem tackling speed, cost, security, and now pushing hard into AI and usability.
Absolutely. And I think for listeners, understanding BNB Chain gives you a really valuable perspective on the whole blockchain space. You see how DeFi, gaming, NFTs, and now AI are evolving together on a high-performance chain. It's a fascinating case study of an ecosystem trying to balance that performance with, increasing community control and decentralization.
Definitely. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening to chew on. What possibilities really open up with a build and build ecosystem like this, one that blends high speed with its evolving community governance model? What does that mean for how we interact online, how we own digital things in the future, and how will it keep challenging or maybe complementing other big networks like Ethereum in the years ahead? Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.